Morning folks, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School. What I thought we'd do today is take an opportunity to come out here in the forge and make a simple forging project that you can make even at home. You could make this with an acetylene torch and any type of grinder that you may have, even if it's an angle grinder. I'm going to use some more expensive machinery in my shop to make it, but it's a simple project. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a Marlin spike, and we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the Marlin spike in the beginning of this video. Okay, so let's talk about the Marlin spike for a minute. A Marlin spike is a piece of steel, in this case, about 6 inches long. It's tapered and polished, and it doesn't come to a real sharp point. The history of the Marlin spike is important in understanding this tool because there's a lot of misconception out there about what a Marlin spike is. Now, everybody understands, or most people understand, that a Marlin spike hitch is simply a turn in a rope that goes up and you pull a loop through that, and when you drop any kind of a toggle through that, it becomes what's called a Marlin spike hitch, okay? The importance of that was that the Marlin spike was also used to get a good grip on a piece of rope to pull something tight. If you're trying to pull a knot tight or something like that, instead of grabbing the rope with your bare hands, generally it would have been manila rope or some type of natural fiber that would be very abrasive on your hands. You could put a Marlin spike in there and grab that and pull on it, and you wouldn't get that abrasion on your hands. Okay, so there's two different words basically for this tool, and they're Marlin spike and fid. And they're somewhat interchangeable. Although a Marlin spike is never made from wood, a fid could be made from wood or from metal. So something that was larger than this, that was made of wood, or even the same diameter of wood, would be called a fid. This could be called a fid, but a wooden object like this could never be called, or should never be called, a Marlin spike, because they're always made from metal. So you have lots of different tasks you can use this for, and we've talked about the versatility of a Marlin spike in some of my past videos. I have a video that I'll link to this video in the description box on the versatility of the Marlin spike in camp, because it's one of the most important hitches that you can probably understand. And so one of the things that we want to do is we want to understand the history of this tool and where the name comes from and all those types of things. And so the Marlin spike, if you look at a piece of rope and it's unseized or unbound, then it's called the mar of rope. The marline is the line that's used to whip that rope to keep it from unraveling. And a Marlin spike was used to remove or pick off that marline. That's why it was called the Marlin spike. It was also used for things like separating the lays in a rope so that you could do end of the line loops by weaving the rope back through itself to make a loop in the line and things of that nature. Okay, so how do we go about making this Marlin spike? Well, it's actually really easy, and that's why I chose it for this video. We're going to take a length of material over here. I've got a load of material that we use to make different forged applications and implements that we send to Self-Reliance Outfitters from Pathfinder Forge and Tool. And we're going to use hexagon stock for this. So this started out as a piece of hexagon stock that we ground down to this point and flattened here and drilled a hole in after we twisted it. So we're going to do things in certain steps, and I'll explain to you the reason we're doing them in those steps as we go. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut this piece of metal from a piece of 5/16 hexagon stock. Here we go. All right, so we've got a piece of scrap hexagon stock here, the same diameter as our Marlin spike. So I'm going to lay the Marlin spike down, and now we're going to work on this. And this is about the same length. It might be a little bit longer, but we're going to grind some of it off anyway. So the first thing we want to do is we want to take a fairly heavy grit belt or a fairly heavy grit grinding implement, whatever we've got. I'm going to use a 60 grit on this. And I'm not going to do any forging on this until I have ground the rough grind of my spike on here. The reason for that is because I've got this flat plate on here, and I can actually roll this on the plate to get a good grind right here on my belt. And I'll show you once we get our belt tracked even here. We'll bring the camera over and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so now I can actually take this and I can roll this. And I just hold it with my fingers here and rolling it here. And this is just going to give me my rough grind. Now, because this thing's getting superheated, I do have a bucket of water down here that I'm dipping this into. Again, I don't want this to be a real sharp point because I don't want it to damage the rope. So we're going to make it kind of a blunt tip. Okay, so that gives us the rough grind of this thing. And now we're going to go over here and we're going to heat the forge up. And we're going to put a twist in here to give it some decoration. And we're going to draw this front part out to drill a hole in it. So I'm just going to direct this in real quick. Just make sure that it's nice and flat. Just like that. And now we're going to head to the forge. That'll burn the hair off your arms. Okay, so the next trick here is going to be to lock this piece in this vise while it's hot. And we'll just take a monkey wrench and we'll clamp it down on it. And that's how we're going to do our twists while the piece is red hot. Now, we're just going to take a look at this dude and get things straight. Some of it's a little bit of an optical illusion because of the twist, so you gotta, don't let that fool you. Now what we're going to do is we're going to flatten out an area here that we can drill so we have an area for the lanyard. We don't need to get overly aggressive with this. Just trying to put a fishtail on there. Real simple. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we want to drill this for a lanyard. So we're going to punch this thing in the center. Just like that. Give our drill bit a place to seat. That's centered here. And now we're going to drill it. Okay, we're getting really close to having this thing licked. We got our bevel here. I just did that on the grinder real quick off camera. We've got our decorative twist. We have our initial reduction, our initial grind here. Remember, this has got to be smooth, so we're going to have to drop down and grit. And we've got our lanyard hole. The next thing I want to do is I want to heat treat this a little bit and quench it, okay? Remember that when you are heat treating something or quenching metal, it can only get as hard as that metal is capable of getting. And this is a softer steel. which is fine because I don't want it to be brittle anyway. So I'm going to heat it up till it's completely orange. Then I'm going to let it cool down just a little bit, and then I'm going to dunk it in water for a heat treat. Now I'm only going to quench about half of this, okay? Because that's the part that I want to be the hardest. I need a little bit of, I won't say springiness necessarily, but I need a little bit of give in the material. I don't want it to be rock hard. I don't want it to be brittle. All right, so we've changed this over now to a finishing type belt. And now we're going to polish this thing. And we can do that on just the slack side to start off with. And we've got our bucket of water over there again. We're not trying to superheat anything. And again, remember, you're not trying to put too sharp of a point on this thing. So you want it kind of blunt. You don't want to damage your rope. And I'm only really polishing it about to where the decorative twist starts right there. And then I'm going to lay off of it. So I'm just getting all of those heavy belt marks out of it that we had on there from the 60 grit belt. And I'm just going to dress this up, make sure all of this is even where my fishtail's at, make sure that my hole's in the center and all that stuff. So I'm just going to dress that up on the fine belt as well. Good. Pretty good. Not too shabby, okay? Pretty much that is the gist of how to make a Marlin spike with the decorative twist, and now you just put a lanyard in there and you're ready to rock and roll. And these things were traditionally carried piggyback with a rope knife or separately in some kind of a sheath on the belt.